Hello, it's The Verified, and welcome to this special edition with me, Madi Jobarteh. Mr. Jobarteh, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here once again.
Right. Right. So this edition, we're looking at the issue of tribalism, negative ethnicity, politics, tribe versus whatever in politics. And in the recent days, I would say weeks or even months, it's an unending conversation. Especially now that the politics is approaching, issue of tribe always comes to the fore. Why do you think that's the case?
So I think when one looks at it, tribe has always been there. Of course, perpetrated by politicians and the elite as well in the formal sector, but also, in our case, I think recently NHRC released a report which is more than just tribe, but hate speech as a whole, other actors down there, because tribalism also has an element of hate speech, because usually it's used very derogatively. Yeah, so the bottom line though is that they talk about tribe, from a negative perspective particularly, has always been here and, as I said, perpetrated by politicians. And the closer we get to elections, because of the competition for votes, the competition, the struggle to, beat each other down, and a lot of the time, individuals don't have ideas, they don't have solutions, they cannot even identify the problem, and there's a matter of courage and conviction. All of these put together, then easily tribe becomes that fallback thing to hit at each other. Unfortunately, the rest of society falls for it.
But there must have been a reason that, the fact that tribe is also, this idea of sense of belonging of the person. They need to belong, they need to be in a group, they need to be able to identify with a certain section, which, we have set several categories, we can come and discuss about all those categories, but that must have been the magnet here. The idea that people want to feel to belong.
In another sense, probably that is not the problem. People know where they belong. Maybe what we have not created is the concept of a citizen, of a sovereign citizen, the concept of the Gambia, the idea of Gambia, the Gambian. So that in the absence of that, and which I have argued, in many places, that since independence, we are mainly Mandinka and Wolof and Jola, Saragule from CRR or URR from, Batibo, Okiang, from Boraba or Banjul. We are either Muslim or Christian. We are all clear about that. That is where we belong. That is, who we are or what we are. But we've not transcended that to say, okay, while this is fact and it's not negative to be in this group or that group, but beyond and above that, we are Gambians, and that also requires a certain set of value standards and responsibilities and roles that we need to fulfill. So I think our failure has been the fact that we have not developed a Gambian yet, and so people are still in the various sections.
Isn't that a failure in itself of the state? Because, for example, what I was trying to get at is that if you look at the hierarchy of our social order, now of course you have the country, you have the citizen, right? But you then also have the tribe, then you have the clan, then you have the names, the surnames, then you have the village and the towns, and at every layer of this, people feel a sense of belonging. Now, all these layers are in competition, aren't they?
Well, not necessarily. So it's not negative to have tribes.
Yeah.
Because that is natural.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere in the world, in the UK, you have the Scots and the Welsh and the English and the Irish, and everywhere else. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So that in itself is not really negative. To belong to be a Muslim or a Christian is not negative. To be from Boraba or Banjul, and just like to be a man or woman. So these are the facts of our socio-cultural, political, framework. But then there's another framework, which is the nation.
Yeah.
I mean, the nation state.
Yeah.
So that what has been our problem, our failure from independence, that failure of the state,
Yeah.
to build that other identity, beyond and above our socio-cultural identities. The umbrella identity. And so that, and that's why
all the other various identities.
All the other various identities.
Yeah.
So our failure to build that means, therefore, would even make the state itself, therefore, corrupt or oppressive or exploitative, because it means whoever now controls the state is dealing with the people on the basis of these limited identities or restricted identities, not the global one, which is the national identity as Gambians. And so, from the first day of independence, we have not built that identity, that framework. And so as we move on, knowing the state, the role of the state, the function of the state, but the powers of the state as well, and what the state means, and people have to occupy that state, then there will be a tendency, therefore, for people seeking to go into that state or already there to engage in negativities, purposely to either pave the way for the acquisition of state power or to maintain state power because they are there already.
Yeah, so I once argued on Facebook many times, I mean not once, but that I was looking at the issue of ethnicity, and I said that people should not say that that's not what your country can do for you or what you can do for your country, because the country exists to serve the people, just like the government exists to serve the people. So shouldn't it be the case that for the people to also recognize the state and recognize the state's statehood as or the state's status in their lives as the umbrella, the state must also have a significance in their life, so that it's...
Yeah, so this statement, which goes back to JFK, the US president in the 60s, first time I heard the statement, I said, okay, this is half the truth.
Yeah.
So that it raised the question, what is the state?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the state? Who is the state? So that when you come to look at it in the context of the republic, the state is our collective, property.
Yeah.
Created out of our will, our opinion, to serve as an instrument to protect our rights and fulfill our needs. So the state is ours. And so that state, and that is why we have all the laws and we have this concept of rule of law. How do we make sure that state, because we have surrendered a lot of our rights, we've empowered that state, with a lot of powers, resources, and so on. So for that state to be abusive is very real. And that is why there is the concept of rule of law, so that the state, because we'll come to acquire, a lot of power, has to be restrained. All right, restrained one, but also to serve all of us equally, fairly, consistently, so that if the state, therefore, does that, to serve us, it means that state would build our capacities, create opportunity, and so on. So that in the final analysis, the people and the state is like, it's like a revolving thing.
So the state has to serve the people, so that the
people
people
can
serve
serve the state. Yes.
Exactly.
So for me, that is the full story. And that is the very reason why we create the state, so that in this state we have a Ministry of Education.
So the far removed the state is from the people,
yeah,
the less likelihood they are going into their tribal alliances.
Yeah, So therefore, those who control the state, if they are not maintaining that state in the very concept, in the very purpose that state was created, then what will result is people would exploit, and that is when we say abuse of power now, abuse of office, abuse of authority, disregard of the law, and the corruption and everything. So when that happens, then that is where sectarianism is exploited.
So you could see, we can go into other forms of sectarianism, but so just to give a statistic, so the statistics by Afrobarometer, a very recent one, says that over 4 in every 10 Gambians feel that the government treats their ethnic group unfairly.
So I saw that survey.
You saw that?
Yeah, and so that in itself is a cause for tribalism. Just because you have that feeling, you feel discriminated. All right, because it's two ways. There is one where like you or me, I attack you on the basis of your tribe. Okay. Say Madi is tribalist, and so on. And I could have been the politician or the president or anyone. That is one. But then there's the other side of it where also there's no individual politician necessarily attacking you on the basis of your tribe. But as a group, as a tribe, you feel the institutions are not serving you people because you are discriminated on the one way or another on the basis of tribe. So which also can generate tribalism because then it generates resentment in the members of the tribe to feel, the institutions are not doing this. If those institutions, let's say, are the police or immigration or the hospital, it means therefore they're looking at who is there, because the institution is run by people. So who is the IGP? Who is the chief medical director? Who is the minister? So that on the basis of that you may begin to also say, because the minister is a Mandinka or Fuller, so the Fullers don't like us. Because tribalism is such a delicate thing because it has always exaggeration in it. Because one person may do something to you and it belongs to the tribe. But then usually your response is these tribe people.
So you overgeneralize it.
Yes. And
so if a Fuller slaps you and you say,
the Fullers are violent people.
They hate us.
So
and he may not necessarily have done that because of your identity, but maybe
or because he's a Fuller. I mean, he's just an individual who just decides to do this.
So the analysis, the issue of overgeneralization.
That is a problem, and I have had these engagements with individuals, on both sides, who feel like I've talked to people who are Mandinka who feel because somebody said something and they say, these people could be Wolof or Fuller or Jola, they don't. I said, but also this is one person sitting at the radio or at a platform saying negative things about the Mandinka. That doesn't mean he's representative of his tribe. But at the same time, I've also talked to other people who are Wolof and Fuller and Jola and so on, and would point to a particular Mandinka person saying something negative, and they also say, the Mandinkas are this. But that guy is not a representative of the Mandinkas. And Mustapha, there's something else also when we talk about all this tribal issue. That there's also a background, a certain background, because in our ethnic groups, in our languages, which also is not peculiar to Gambian ethnic groups alone, but you'll find that everywhere, stereotypes. And sometimes they come in the form of stereotypes, but joking relationships also. They also share those things. Yes. So the let's say the Mandinkas, I mean the Kabung, who call them the Kabung and the Fuller, or the Jola and the Serir, and the Fuller and the Serir, for example. Those joking relationships are there, and then which may not necessarily be negative, which are actually not negative.
They are positive.
They are positive.
But then you have prejudice also.
So that is when the stereotypes come, and then the prejudice, because the stereotype is just an idea. Prejudice is the action. Okay, so when one of the social can,
Yeah.
all right, or the Mandinka says Suwama Gesamota Nyota. Okay, that's a stereotype. I mean, to believe, to hold a generalized view of a whole people.
Of a whole people, yeah.
Yeah, but then prejudice comes when you also respond to them. So a Jola person comes to a job, seek a job, and I'm a Mandinka. I'm like, Jola, I'm not going to employ this. So my stereotype is put into practice. So therefore, I decided not to employ this person when in fact he is the most qualified.
Yes. We will come to some of these things, but aren't we also, in a way, I mean, we look at the issue of state being the umbrella body, and the failure of state being the umbrella body then allows people to go into their various groups. But aren't we also competitive by design? So, for example, even if you remove all the other tribes in the Gambia, leave Mandinkas here alone, Mandinkas are going into clan. So we would say the Darboes are the original Mandinkas. You see this even in the same society. Yeah. So if you go to Salikanya, you still have people who are discriminated against. We still have a social strata where that allows discrimination. So aren't we inherently biased?
Well, yes and no. So diversity, I mean, I think from a rights perspective, we call that diversity.
Yeah.
And which is a fact of society, is probably even fact of nature. I mean, you find diversity, that's why they call it biodiversity.
Yeah.
Because, in the natural world, you just don't have mangoes and oranges, but mangoes also have their various variants, different types of mangoes, So I guess Jur may claim they are the most authentic mango than any other mango, and so on. So similarly in the human society, there is diversity, and it comes in different way, I mean, forms. And so that's why, there is this concept of diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Yeah.
That yes, we are diverse. I mean, not just in terms of ethnic groups, but within an ethnic group, there's also a lot of diversity in in family, in caste, in a lot of other social stratas are down there. A lot of other identities are there. And so, how do we generate an idea of equality that beyond and above is we are all equal as human beings, we are equal as citizens, which means we are equal before the law, and in the context of the state, we are all equal before the law, we are all equal in terms of opportunities, and so we all have a right to participate, so that the concept of inclusion comes, so that especially our decision-making institutions reflect the character or the nature of society, so that it's inclusive,
So you think your view is that even whereas we may feel inherent some sort of bias within us at that level, at the level of the clan, at the level of the family, at the level of the tribe, at the level of the region, at the level of the state, when we are in union, if the governance gets it right and the state functions well, then the issue of the impact will be minimal.
Will be minimal, yes. Because bias, because when we talked about stereotypes, prejudice, and so on, it generates bias, so that, and bias can be positive or negative. It can be implicit or explicit. There is some bias, I mean, it's just in me, it's in my subconscious. Maybe I've not thought about it that much and so on. But there is some other bias that you acquire.
Yeah, but if you look at even inherent Mandinka culture, Mandinka societies, you do have groups that they would say cannot marry to this group because these ones they come from a more inferior
low caste,
low caste or whatever. And so if you go to Fulas, the same. This is Paul Futa. These ones are from this. I mean,
so I think the background to all of this is one, the diversity, and two, the knowledge and information. And this was civic education, and now the role of the state is critical, because I mean, just imagine 50 years ago, at the first day of independence, how many Gambians, are really conscious of what is a republic, and I'm a citizen in this republic, a republic of the Gambia. What does that mean? All right. And so before that, where do people belong? People belong to, their localities, and we have names. Badibu, Kiang, Fuladu, Yomi, Jokadu. Those are the things people know. People know they belong to their tribes. And in those days, also with all these stereotypes, there may not be a hostility.
But even in those settings, we do have multi-ethnicity. Like we have the Mali Empire, we have the Gambia Empire, we have tons of empires.
Yeah, tons of
diverse.
And all of these generate a certain narrative. All of them generate, because power is there, resources are there. All right, knowledge is there. Well, how much do people know? What are people's fears and concerns and issues? So all of these things generate a certain reaction, and some of these reactions will go along tribal narratives, and within the tribe also will go along caste narratives, and so on and so forth. So that when we now have a modern state like the Republic of the Gambia, then the state becomes very critical in undertaking that civic education, so that people rise above their biases and stereotypes and prejudice and enclaves, whether that's tribe or religion or region, and even within all of this, the various sects. Because even if you come to religion, you find so many religious groups.
So and have always wanted to kill each other.
Exactly. So we need therefore a certain kind of civic education.
Sort of live and let live.
Yeah, live and let live, but even deeper than that, to realize it is not just a matter of live and let live.
We have a stake in each other.
We have a stake in each other, and because also when you perpetrate, and Africa we have that example, when you perpetrate this tribalism thing, it doesn't necessarily mean all the people belonging to that tribe are going to benefit. For example,
in fact, practically in large cases, a lot of them lose.
They lose.
Much more lose.
Yeah. So so to understand this delicacy about tribalism, that at the end of the day, it is just serving individuals, either to get elected, to get a certain position, to keep in that position, and they may be very useless, very incompetent, very corrupt. But because we have allowed tribalism to take over, and that corrupt person is making you lose electricity.
But isn't tribalism and tribal politics also a bit different?
It's a general concept. That's why I tell people I don't think tribalism is in the Gambia. What is here is tribal politics, because I'm saying this based on the facts available. We've not had any two communities, for example, go to war in this country. Well, war is too much, but even clash on the basis of ethnicity, like a Fula community village go and attack a Wolof community or Mandinka community. I may have a lot of research, but I have not seen evidence of that yet. I've seen evidence of our communities being multicultural, multi-ethnic. One community, there may be a dominant ethnic group.
There is still prevailing prejudice. Maybe we can talk about it at some point.
So I come to that. But so at the community level, that is what I see, that cohabitation. And then I see evidence of intermarriage. All right. So that what that tells me is our society is not tribalist.
But our society also is true of design of us is also not like other African countries. Because, for example, if you go to Nigeria, they tell you, oh, these Hausas and the Fulanis are the Northerners. These ones are from. We don't have that.
Because of the state.
We live everywhere, everyone lives the same place.
So because of the state. All right. So I very well get, in Nigeria, we can even go further to highlight Rwanda, where the Tutsis, the Hutus went after the Tutsis. But then you see state participation. State, generated, that's why I say tribal politics, state generated, hatred or, tribalism. And that has been the problem in Africa, and certainly in the Gambia, and it comes at different levels. So at our level, the state has not triggered that kind of tribalism to the level that it would translate into what you would have in Nigeria, for example, or even worse in Rwanda. But certainly you can see that in the Gambia also the state, that is state officials, I put part of the state, I put politicians part of it, like political parties, because political parties are governments in waiting. So for me, they are part of the category of the state. So I see the state as officials and politicians, both in the ruling party, for example, in government, whether in the legislature or in the executive, or in the political parties outside, perpetrate this tribalism because they either want to maintain power, which they hold, or they are seeking to gain power.
But even within that context, do we not sometimes overgeneralize in the sense that where, for example, a Mandinka voting for a Mandinka may not necessarily be based on tribe. It may be because you consider that Mandinka to be more competent.
Yeah.
And so, but we overgeneralize even in those circumstances.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean, as you rightly said, because you vote for a politician who belongs to the same tribe, you are tribalist. No, because you may agree with the policy.
Yeah.
You may not agree
But
with
it may also be the case.
But it may also be the case that you are actually siding with this person, so which is a whole different area to really analyze. I think I'll rather focus on the actions of the state officials and the politicians, and how that is impacting on our society. That is how the ordinary voters, ordinary citizens are responding. Because when that happens, in our case, you can see how people, you can see the divide, the line. Some coming to defend a politician, with his tribal rhetoric. And some opposing because we are the target. But on another time, they will come to support that politician, also perpetrate, tribal, rhetoric. So therefore, I think our problem has been the state officials and the politicians. The rest of society, I think what has been lacking is the civic education, so that, how can they identify tribal talk, for example, tribal rhetoric by politicians, and how can they reject it? How can they condemn it? Now that it's a big challenge in our society.
But the society in itself, based on my interactions, we can talk about our own experiences later on, but based on my interactions with a lot of people, society in itself sometimes tend to be confused in itself about what ethnicity is about, how to deal with it. So for example, you hear someone says, my tribe is Gambia. That doesn't seem to me as good education, like your tribe is not Gambia. And should you be afraid of it? It's as though you are running away from the identity.
Yeah, it's a big problem. I think one of our great African leaders I respect, admire, Samora Machel. I think famously said the tribe must die for the nation to survive or live. In one sense, I understand the context.
You understand the context, yes.
But I don't necessarily agree with that message. I don't think the tribe should die. And certainly the tribe cannot die.
It's important.
Yes, and I think we need some kind of civic education for people to see that when we say Gambia, and we need one Gambia, a united Gambia. But the united Gambia is built on difference, on diversity. Yes, it's like any other society in the world. The united Gambia is built on different tribes belonging to different religions, from different homes, different families, different, everything. And so for me, unity presupposes difference. And that is the kind of education we need to give our citizens, so that they are able to also detect this, polarizing attitude of politicians.
But you do have in events that sort of showcases that kind of unity you were talking about. So for example, if there is a football event, Gambia is playing Mali, and we've gone to Mali, surely you will see a Gambian Mandinka defending a Gambian Fula on the streets of Mali against a Malian team member or a Malian football fan. Surely, I have met somebody at a train station in in Switzerland. And when I recognized he's Gambian, I walked up to him. I didn't ask him. I didn't know what his tribe was. I just recognized him, and we spoke. And he told me he came from Talinding. And from the accent of his Mandinka, it doesn't sound like he's Mandinka.
Right.
But I mean, so you can see when we are out, we tend to.
There's affinity, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you tend to identify. So there are events that shows.
Yeah. So for me, like I was saying before, those reflect the fact that people are not tribalist. So you will reject that person, or that person will not reject you because you belong to different tribes.
Yeah.
Immediately you realize you are Gambians. You know, no matter how well you are conscious about the Gambia as a republic, you call this. You immediately hold on to each other. All right. So I think this whole idea of tribalism comes into play, and of course, sports. When it is sports, we all come together around the Gambia, which many countries you can see it. But then when it comes to issues of power and resources and who controls them, is when tribalism steps in, not from the people, but from the people, the other side, who are really seeking the mandate of the people to be put in charge of power and resources.
Now let's
that equation is where our people need to.
Now let's look at that in a bit more detail. If you look at, you talked about power and resources. Now, it could probably be argued that, I mean, if the system is also not right, he who controls it takes it, right? Because in the Gambia, for example, I mean, we have had a situation where Jammeh says, if you don't vote for me, no development. So if it's in the case, you've talked about corruption and tribalism, and also when you visit a place and a Jola sees you and he says, or you see a Jola and you, on the basis of his tribe, you don't hire him. So if there's a sentiment around the public or within the public that until I control this, I don't get to benefit from it. Whether it's state power or state resources. This solely encourages tribalism also.
Yeah, so it all comes down to power and resources. So what Jammeh was doing was about maintaining power, accumulating resources, wealth. And so to vote for him is to give him power. So, and if he has power, even legally, he is at a position to decide the distribution of resources, of wealth, because the budget comes from the state. So therefore, he uses that to punish because you didn't vote for him. But it's a cycle. So you vote for him, he has more power, maybe now legitimate power. You don't vote for him, he denies you illegitimately resources, because that resource, that wealth is your wealth also, even if you don't vote for him.
But if he denies the group, then the group can also go into alliance.
All right. So in denying the group, it's in many forms. One is to say, I will not bring development here. But the other thing is, probably in that village or that region, there's an opposition party dominating there. So how do I discredit this opposition party or that candidate they put there on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of religion or some other thing? So and therefore that is also generating the tribalism. And that is how politicians and state officials generate tribalism, because the power they need to get there, they don't have it. They're in competition with someone. And so how do I discredit, weaken, overcome this person or this group, in order for me to get the power? And, probably one of the easiest ways to do so is to use the tribal card.
So that's a situation where tribalism, tribal politics becomes a consequence of collapse of governance.
Exactly. Failure of the state.
Failure of the state. To be able to distribute resources. So that everybody feels that unless we galvanize and we have these resources, we are not going to benefit from it. Unless we are in charge of it, we cannot benefit from it.
So that's the effect, because if Jammeh does that, when Jammeh was doing that, and if anyone does that, then you are also going to trigger a feeling in the other side to realize, look, we need to band together. Because we have been attacked on account of our
And that's
ethnicity.
where fear comes.
You know, and then fear comes and all of those other issues, and then they also band together, rightly or wrongly, and respond. And in that response, they can even trigger another feeling in another group over there.
Yes.
And then it becomes some cancer or some virus.
And because
You know,
it becomes in fact established that this is in fact a tribal politics.
Yeah, because Jamia goes now and say, okay, the Mandinkas don't like me because they are, I'm Jola.
Yeah.
Naturally, you are going to trigger, you may trigger some feeling, right or wrongly,
Yes.
reaction in, say, a Jola person, or in a Wolof person, or in a Fula person. All right, particularly if they do not comprehend the issues.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, and that's where our people have become victims.
Yeah. And so when the reaction comes now, it becomes a reality.
It becomes reality.
Yeah.
So people are now fighting, each other. So in the course of my life and reading the history of the Gambia, I have seen that narrative being pushed, not just Gambia, but even since Jawara days to now. People claiming they want to remove me from my office because I'm a Mandinka.
Yes.
They want to remove it, are fighting me because I'm a Wolof.
Yeah.
And I remember having this argument with people. I said, look, for me, as someone who is from Boraba, I'm not going to buy that argument, because what I know is we even had a president here who was a Mandinka. As the first president. We have vice presidents Mandinkas. We have, ministers and deputies. Parliamentarians Mandinkas. And our community is just a Mandinka-dominated community. We don't even have electricity. So who's gonna tell me to go and fight for someone because that person belongs to the Mandinka? But you can go across. For any ethnic group from Banjul to Basse, you will realize that all the people who are talking about tribalism, you begin to wonder, okay, what tribe are you fighting for? What are you really fighting to achieve or to prevent? So that when you walk across our communities, from Banjul to Pototo, you see the poverty.
And the consequence of whatever is happening, majority of all the tribes are suffering.
Yeah, that's the poverty, the deprivation, and then the people we say we are fighting for, or who are telling us about this tribalism, are very few people in charge of the state at different levels, well pampered, well served, and then we sit at home in our poverty and lack of electricity and and all of these things, and we are talking about the problem is that tribe.
Yeah. And I guess this is everybody conveniently says my people.
Yeah. So the problem is that tribe, and the members of the tribe say, no, the problem is this other tribe. Not all of us realizing actually we are all suffering as a result, only for out of us few to stay on top down there.
But isn't that for purpose? Because if you look at it, whether even in the liberation struggles, the elites are the tribal warlords.
Yeah.
And for a purpose, because the elites are the tribal representatives.
Yeah.
Surely a farmer cannot represent the Mandinkas in government. So the elite, for the elite to thrive and to be corrupt and to benefit, there has to be tribalism. There has to be tribal politics. I was going to say either by design or by default. But it's the elite actually, because only one person can be president. Yeah.
Only one person can be a minister of this or that.
Yeah.
And it is these people who are perpetrating this tribal nonsense really, and but the rest of the people are suffering.
Yeah.
But then when you look at it, we could say therefore that elite, those elites, they are not just being honest, because when you look at it critically, if you are really honest, you're not really going to lose anything anyway. Because if you are president, you are minister, you'll still get the salary you'll be paid, and all the incentives, the benefits, you'll still get that.
Yeah, but there are certain benefits also that tribal politics brings you.
Well, except to keep you in office.
Yes.
Yes. All right. And so it raises the question: did you go to office for public service, to serve the public, or so that if that is public service, how long do you want to be a president?
But we've talked about tribal politics as being a consequence of collapse of government.
Yeah. When when everything collapses, because it raises the question: how long do you want to be president? How long do you want to be a minister?
Yeah.
How long do you want to be a parliamentarian? So
but even practically, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, we can come to this because I've had people brought me these narratives even in the course of my investigations as well. Even practically, for example, you have 40,000 employees of Gambia government, right? And if you look at it from that perspective, you can change only any new government that comes in cannot even change up to 1,000, maybe not even up to 500, not even up to 100 maybe, because mostly you change the directors and the ministers, right? Those are even less than 100 or maybe 100 or less than 200 certainly. So how do you know Fasa in this state? Like coming manding a Fasa, Fula Fasa, Manjak Fasa, Jola Fasa. Like how do you do that in the government? Like practically.
You have the general staff,
Yeah.
and those wouldn't be the 100 or 200 people that the president would appoint directly.
Yeah.
So I think that is where the key is though. One, the ability of the president to appoint these people as managing directors, as permanent secretaries, as board members of state institutions, even as generals, of the security institutions and so on. And so it is to look at the issue of power, because what are the foundations of power when you look at it? So of course the president is at the apex, at the top down there, but the pillars are there. The cabinet is a pillar of power, all right. And so who do you put there, all right? And permanent secretaries are pillars of power. They all maintain the system, all right. And of course the generals are still also a structure in that power structure. So the issue now is, who do I put there in order to maintain this power structure? All right, because these are the people who also impact on the rest of the population, either by coercion or by, by amicable means, because, they will perform honestly, diligently, professionally to serve the needs of the people, or, they will employ other tactics, whether it's disinformation or even, violations, of the law, just to, maintain the status quo. Yeah, so, when that happens, therefore, the people below all of those permanent secretaries, those generals, the middle and the junior, and even senior level officers, it's about, therefore, what is the agenda, what is the vision, what is the attitude of this this person as the general, or the permanent secretary, or the minister, or the managing director, who sees himself as here to promote the agenda of the president. So when that happens, I think it trickles down, therefore, who are for me or who are against me, and usually that will take the tone of the tribal narrative. Yeah, it's because that officer over there, the manager, the principal
is of that tribe,
and is fighting me when I'm just incompetent, all right? But they are fighting me because I'm this. So, and sometimes even at that middle level, you will see people banding together because they belong to this ethnic group.
But if you look at it
and so on.
practically, of course, for those senior people, they will benefit, their families will benefit, they will have fat allowances, good salaries and stuff. But if you now come to, because they will also be grossly inefficient, they will be corrupt, they will be incompetent.
That's what is it.
So then, therefore, the greater number of the society, the greater number of the tribe they claim to be representing suffers.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I said, so practically, what then does it mean? Like, can you practically serve a tribe by sort of saying we're going to make this a government or a fuller government?
Yeah, right. So Mustapha, all of those people perpetrating tribalism, these elite politicians and state officials, they have no allegiance to their tribe.
Yeah.
No, they don't care about their tribe. They do lip service for the purpose of earning them a position and maintaining the position, given that position is bringing them wealth and resources, privilege, and so on. But they are not doing it on any sound argument that I'm defending my tribe or advancing my tribe. No, they and that is what the rest of society do not usually get, and so we just follow because we are, their rhetoric makes us feel good, that we see ourselves in the narratives they are pushing, as if our tribe is being served or being protected or being But those people doing the tribalism, those politicians, they don't care about their tribe. And one of the evidence of that is that behind the corridors in their offices, you will see them sit with that people from that tribe that they are
married into that
or married into that tribe, and doing business with them and so on, and conniving to defraud the state and and exploit the people. All right, but publicly they are saying this thing. So that's why this whole tribal politics is a farce.
But in another way also, the money that they are misspending, the money they are stealing, is from the members of the tribe.
Yeah.
Because if you come to think of it, I mean, the money of the Gambia belongs to all of Mandinkas, all of Fulas, all of everybody.
Yeah.
So you're stealing from the same people, your people.
Yeah. So that just buttresses the point that they don't care about tribe. No, they in fact, I dare say, and I think I have written this once to tell people, Gambia is a tribalist. Now, in some quarters in the Gambia, that would be a difficult proposal to sell.
Yeah.
But I said, look, let's look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Who are Jammeh's key collaborators from 1994 to 2017? I mean, good or bad, you will see that they cut across tribes. Yeah. So the man is not necessarily tribalist. He just played the tribal game.
And he drove $1 million vehicle at the heart of poverty.
I tell you.
Like, where Jammeh lives, like it's opulence at the heart of misery.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go to Kanilai, I mean, his compound is a palace, a ranch, and then all around you see, ordinary Gambians in poverty and in deprivation and so on. So that is why
and that's where he experimented his witch hunting herbalism.
Yeah, the witch hunting.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are all part of this tribal nonsense, because it takes you to erratic behaviors. I mean, actions. So that when you come to look at it, in one sense you are like, okay, this is still a game this man is playing, because I'm sure he knows witches are not going to remove him from office. In fact, there are no witches, so to speak. But this is all part of the game of power accumulation, power maintenance, sustaining power, because it's in the interest of the elite, the corrupt elite particularly, to mystify themselves. I mean, for me, it is not just to say witches are there like Jammeh. There are beasts in that forest. I'll enter and pour in libation. Beyond that, but even the idea of, getting into a big vehicle, SUV, tinted glass. I mean, trying to dress immaculately in a certain way, and you can even see some of them, the way they want to walk or talk is even changing. It's all part of the mystification agenda.
Of power.
Yeah, of power, so that they want to give themselves some kind of grandeur, some status,
But even if-
rather than just being a public servant.
Again, if you look at even the appointment, let's say for example, I took over government, I look around and say this is going to be a Mandinka government, I appoint you as director of ports. If I know you're incompetent, you cannot handle ports, and I appoint another person who I know to be incompetent as managing director of NAWEC. Now, those people, their families may do very well. But here is me putting in charge someone of NAWEC who is totally incompetent. And if NAWEC doesn't do well, like I help one family, probably 800,000 Mandinkas are suffering because of NAWEC is not doing well. I mean, the idea, I mean, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Because that's the whole idea.
Yeah, but they don't do these things, out of the blue. And you may agree or disagree with that calculation. But the point is when you get into that kind of framework, is because you believe this person, incompetent as he is, if I put him here, he's an equation in my power formula. So maybe he's not there because I think he's competent or he will get efficient electricity to the population. But by him being there, he's going to attract support from me.
From a particular clan or from a particular tribe,
yeah,
a particular region.
Exactly. Or by putting him there, it overshadows maybe my opponents, somehow. Because when you look at, particularly from Jammeh's time to date, you look at the understanding the purpose of the state, the function of the state, and what the law requires. Then you look at the kind of appointments that are made, you begin to wonder, but any reasonable person should know, this person should not be a minister, this person should not be a managing director,
or governor,
or a governor, or things like that. Why would any president reasonably appoint this person? Now, I think rational beings like you and me may begin to crack our heads to try to understand that. But if we go into the head of this person, this president, for example, we will come to realize what is driving that president to make that kind of appointment.
So, but if it is not in the interest of the people, and I'm sure we both would agree by now it's not in the interest of the people, why do they fall for it? I mean, is it because of the need to belong? Is it because of the rhetoric? Is it because of fear?
No,
what is it?
Two things. One, you are assuming necessarily that president has the interests of the people at heart. Yes, I mean, and I think for us, at least from Jammeh to date, we don't have that kind of a president yet. So certainly they will put people there that clearly these are incompetent and corrupt individuals put in charge of strategic institutions for strategic services to our country. All right. So they because they are not concerned about the interests of the people.
But why,
so
why do people fall for it?
Yeah. So that is the one part. So the other part is people fall for it because I think we can just say our people are yet to acquire the political awareness, and this brings in the statement by Sankara when he said a soldier without political awareness is a virtual criminal. And I always say, to rephrase that, a citizen without political awareness is a virtual criminal or a virtual victim.
But are we exaggerating political awareness? Because they are practically living it. So for example, if Dembo by force, as he did before the presidential election, last president comes to tell you, don't vote for a Mandinka, if you vote for a Mandinka, we wouldn't be able to live in this country. I mean, if he says this, I mean, a normal other tribe should look at this person and say, well, if this guy is right, if he is speaking for me, but this guy is a Mandinka, it's ridiculous.
So two ways. in one sense, you could say this one is what he says is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because he's Mandinka.
He's
But on the
Mandinka.
basis, on that same argument line also,
Yeah.
he could say, therefore, maybe he's an honest Mandinka. And if he said, because who's going to, harm himself?
He's confessing.
Yeah. So who's going to harm himself? The man is
Well, he's
confessing.
confessing to harm himself.
Yeah. Well, no, harming, telling the others,
For political power.
Yeah. So therefore, somebody may hold that to be, well, this is something to think about. And Mustapha, when you also come in the area of sociology, understanding society, I don't also blame the people a lot. Okay, now everyone in this country should have concerns, issues because of your tribe, and genuine concerns for that matter. If you are Mandinka in this country, you should be concerned that you should be able to live in this society freely and so on, and you will not be discriminated because you are Mandinka or Fula or Jola or Sarakole. All right, but also depending on where you are, you would be concerned about my access to lands, us having our lands, for example, or we have cattle, about our cattle, or this is our cultural belief or practice, or our religion. We should have a right, the space to practice our religion. So every tribe, every religion in this country, you have those genuine concerns, and which is not to say it should make you oppose or fear anyone, but this is something that should concern you. I should be able to get up and pray. I should be able to go and farm. I should be able to travel around, and I should not face any difficulty because of my tribe. Now, if you live in a society like ours, that over the years you see statements. Imagine you are. And this has been expressed. Tribalist tolerance has been expressed by all people. All right. So. So
you became afraid.
Yeah, and that is not just the Gambia, but let's say the US. If I'm in the US right now, you're a black man.
Yeah.
You have genuine concern if you hear a president speak like Trump in the way he speaks, or his ministers, and so on. On the Gambia, and until now, you hear ministers, you hear the president, you see actions. If you're a minority, you have a right to be concerned. If you're an Aku in this country, or if I am Manjago in this country, look, our National Assembly as it is right now, there's no Christian there, there's no Manjago there, there's no Aku there, there's no Karoninka there, there's no Bainu Mankan there. And so if I'm in a society, that concerns me. It really concerns me. If I am, another ethnic group and I hear, imagine I'm a Wolof, I'm a Fula, I'm passing by and I hear a Mandinka person says, this is our country, in a certain way, I may, if I don't sit down to think much about it, I may get agitated. Is that saying
your country too?
Yeah, it's my country too. I'm saying therefore it's not my country.
Yeah.
And when you look at the languages, the narratives flying around on social media and the political platform, you can see how every tribe, is responding. Some in a very defensive manner.
But do you think therefore, in terms of it becomes tense during the political time, in terms of even if you look at, for example, UDP versus NPP, there is a narrative out there where UDP becomes a Mandinka party and the NPP becomes a tribal alliance, so to speak. And you have trading of different kind of sentiments.
Yeah.
Where you have, it could be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah. So
do you think that people fall into that because of fear? Like, for example, if you are a Mandinka and you see a group that is in there, okay, this is a group in the defense of the Mandinkas, and so you say, well, I have to go there. Because we have to protect ourselves, and so and also if you are on the other side, you say, well, we have to form an alliance.
Yeah.
Look at these people.
Yeah.
It's fear, no?
Yeah. So it's fear, and as I was saying, also if you understand the nature of society, you realize that to a large extent you cannot therefore blame a lot of people because also people's level of access to information, their ability to analyze, and but also what is their station in life. I mean, imagine some market woman sitting in the middle of Serakunda market. All she does, every morning travel, come there and sell things. How much information does she have? How much analysis can she do? How much power does she have to influence anything? So when she sits there, information comes to her. Now, we are getting together and now she will be able more she will go with it. Yeah. But also, if you go to the other side, mom, I'm going to guide him, and so that also.
How do you hear all these things?
So because these people will not sit down to really analyze what this means.
But you have a situation where also strong prejudice exists. So, for example, I mean, I was there when Jammeh was making a statement in Telening. I mean, and you could find within the pockets of the people reactions that were, for want of a better expression, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Expressions, and you could hear. You can also find similar expressions, maybe made by Mandinkas, or be made by Woloffs, or be made by Fullers. Sometimes it gets quite nasty.
Yeah, and so it comes from all sides, and one, of course, as you said, perpetrated by these politicians, people in the state, and then it goes down to the ordinary people who, for lack of ability to analyze and their level, their station in life, their capacity, how much power do they have. So it generates fear, concern. When I was at WFD, we did observe the 2021 election, and we were looking at it from the point of inclusion. Looking at the participation, representation of let's say women, persons with disability, minority groups, and so on. And we've had conversation with all sorts of people. And from the tribal part of it, I could see where the respondents we talked to who are non-Mandinka, where they stand, and where the Mandinka respondents where they stand in terms of who to vote for, basically between UDP and NFP, or Barrow and Darboe. All right. But then when we go on the conversation further, I mean, I remember talking to a Wolof fitter in Bakau, a single mother, petty businesswoman, Jonah, and a fuller, I think a teacher or so in Brikama End. I mean, the answers are the same, but then when you enter into the conversation, you realize, we all come to the conclusion, nobody can send any tribe outside of this country. But that fear was there initially.
But then,
and the Mandinka side also, you can see, the fears that also they have is also baseless.
Yeah, but there is a sense where, so for example, I have a friend who tells me, this person is very educated, like it's very educated, had a degree, very educated, and tells me that I'm not going to vote for these people. And he says, I said, well, why? He said, because they said they're going to kick us out of the country. and I look at the person and I said, but this is not possible by law. This is not possible in practice. Like, why are you afraid? So somebody just
physically,
so but you created a fear and you hide within it. It's also some sort of irrational.
It's irrational. So it goes. I mentioned Sankara. I didn't get to elaborate more on it. So fears are not necessarily genuine. Sometimes fear is just what you don't know.
Imaginary.
It's imaginary, or what you don't know, what you've not thought about seriously, and because fear can come from many sources. But then when there is civic education, political education, which we started lately, under Jammeh with the NCCE, but which they neglected and left under-resourced. and still it is more or less the same. But we needed that kind of civic education so that people are enlightened to a level to realize that even the conversation about tribalism really would become almost impossible because the space would not be there for it. Now we don't have that, and so what will happen therefore is people will either be perpetrators of tribalism or become victims of it. All right. So indeed, people have lost their jobs because of their tribe. People have been denied a job because of their tribe. People, I guess, even arrested during Gambia, killed because of their tribe. All right. But at the same time, people have attained certain position, privileges that simply because of their tribe. So it has made us, both victims and criminals in that sense.
But in a situation like that, it could only go up because, for example, if you see tribalism has now become a very vital scorecard in access to resources, in access to anything, in access to power, then you become tribal.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to benefit.
Yeah. So and that's the effect eventually, because I'm sure people like you and me, young professionals, appealing to tribal sentiments, engaging certain people based on tribe to get into a particular office or to get a certain opportunity to go for training. Some people are in public office. That is how they are operating. To see from my tribe's people, let me get them here or give those people opportunities and so on. So which now makes it really difficult to address. And I think this is why probably this conversation, is not only good, but maybe it is the opening. Because I don't think we've had an open, honest public conversation
about tribe.
And I wish TRRC had a theme on tribe and tribalism. Because when you look at it, it could be probably that one weapon or disease that has been afflicting and retarding this country since independence. Because what happens is we don't talk about it publicly, like to say we address it. We just accuse each other of you've made a tribal remark, you are tribalist, and so on. But to sit down as a society to say, look, we recognize this as a problem. Why is this happening? Where is it coming from? Who is perpetrating it? What dangers, what harm is it causing us?
What creates it?
Yeah, and so how do we solve this so that we build, a better society? Now that conversation would be very painful if it were honest and blunt. It would be painful. It would be sensitive. It would be heated. But I think this country needs it. In order for us to build what I call that Gambia which we are yet to create.
But shouldn't it, under the current circumstances right now, can't that only come from the top? Let's say, for example, an initiative by the president.
Yeah.
Fixing governance first. Because part of the issues that part of the reasons why TRRC even addressed a change in some of the laws, some of the institutions was because, fixing what punishes people in the past is also a collective measure of them getting, kind of a reparation. So shouldn't we start that from the top?
Oh yeah, I think it is something that should be driven from the top, should be initiated from the top. Tribalism has become
But the top is in no mood for that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The top sees tribal politics as
but when you look at it, that's what I was going to say. When you look at it, it's not just a matter of the top, the opposition, but everyone else. For example, I'm in the civil society, and generally, anyone I talk to from whichever tribe, everyone would say, no, I'm not tribalist.
Yeah.
Everyone condemns tribalism.
Yeah.
But then, over the period, I have seen
subtle tribal.
The position people take on issues and the comments people make and analyzing it, critically, I saw tribal undertones.
Yeah.
So that it is now a question of one, denial is there.
Yes,
Denial.
yes.
Even though this but denial is there, and then because you deny something probably that you know, but there's also ignorance, so that you are even tribalists, you don't even know. It is like when it comes to in terms of human rights, when it comes to disability or gender, for example, there are certain ideas, actions, words, attitudes that would indicate discrimination, but you may not know, because also this is how we've been socialized. So you make certain remarks about persons with disabilities or about women, not realizing that that is a discriminatory and abusive language or attitude, but
you are unaware of it.
You are unaware of it, and
because it's not in your consciousness.
Yeah. So what is in your subconsciousness is that this is normal.
Yeah.
So that's why there is need for education about disability rights, about child rights, about women's rights, so that people begin to recognize, okay, this should not happen. So there is also a need for that kind of conversation we have, so that it is not just a question of denial, but we also deal with the issue of ignorance, so that people realize, look, I'm really perpetrating, tribalism unknowingly, and I talked here about implicit and explicit bias, so that there is bias that is in your subconscious.
Ingrained in your subconscious.
And somebody comes to your office and greets you, and so what is your name? Madi Jobarteh. Okay, that's a Mandinka, and something triggers in the mind.
Yeah.
Mandinkas are this. So anything that comes next, you are responding to me on the basis of that.
On the basis of
people
that.
Come to your office and said, my Madi Jai, and you said that's a one-off, and you respond accordingly.
Yeah.
Because of your explicit or implicit, bias.
Yeah.
So there needs a national conversation.
But sometimes it gets worse. I mean, sometimes people use even animals to describe people. Like dog, like rats.
I mean, because at the end of the day, tribalism, I put it within the framework of hate speech. Because when you get into it, you don't speak nice about the other person, and in particular about his or her identity. So the idea is to derogate, to discredit the identity of the person. So, the Hutus have been called cockroaches. I mean, vermins and so on. The Jews, you can look at them as a religious group or even as an ethnic group, as Hebrews. You can, Hitler had called them also cockroaches and rats. So which is hate speech, and that also lays the foundation for, the violence, the crime, and even genocide that eventually came.
Because you have to dehumanize the people to justify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think our society needs this conversation. Just I believe many societies need conversations like this. Like, when I look at a country like the US, I say, yes, you need a truth commission on race in America. Given the racism there, it is something that has not been fully addressed. People, groups, events about it and here and there, but then the state recognizing this as a national problem, as a national issue, and bring people around in our context, I think it is necessary, so that we deal with it. Even though when you look at it in our country, I think in most cases people are not asked their ethnicity in filling forms or applying for certain things. Even though in some instances that they are like in census, I think they catch ethnicity. And then I remember going to a police station, being asked to fill a form, a charge sheet, and part of it is ethnicity. When I was arrested, And I said, no, I mean, I'm not going to feel this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so I think we need that conversation as a country.
Mm-hmm.
Or otherwise, yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, it will only be getting more and more compounding and so on.
Well, just to wrap it up, there is a part where if you look at the benefits that the elites get out of this, I've looked at it. I've done times when I'm doing a story, and somebody comes to me to convince me to drop a story that brings in an ethnic narrative that maybe, either only Mandinkas are punished. You know, when you investigate, only Mandinkas are punished. Look at the record. You know, others are not. Things like that. Which, if you look at it, you can see some half truths here and there and all of that. Or comes to you and say, well, this guy is from X, Y, and Z. You know, you should like that kind of thing. Or one instant, I was working on a story that involved some guy who implemented a project. He's of Fulani origin, the person official. The other person who implemented, the official who advised against the project, one is Sarahule, one is Mandinka. So, but he chose to say, you are siding with your Mandinka brother. And so, those kind of false narratives, you hear from all sides. Maybe it also is because also ethnicity also provides, negative ethnicity also provides a protective seal for the corrupt.
Yeah.
So that you can rhyme and hide behind your tribe.
Yeah. So
and say, they're after me because I'm Mandinka, or because I'm Fula, or because I'm Jola.
Yeah. Or they're against me because I'm Fula or Jola.
Yeah.
Or Wolof or so.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's either to silence you, to abandon that story.
Yeah.
Therefore, his corruption to pass.
Yeah.
Or his incompetence to pass.
Mm.
And that's why, like people in the state, because I remember seeing a list also from another group listing number of people who've been removed since 2017 because they are Jola.
Yeah.
I've seen people publish lists to say during Jame, all the positions that were handled by Jola and so on. So, these are all unsettling realities, which indicates there is some malaise in our society, within our state that needs to be addressed. Because just to see the names and of course knowing where they belong and therefore make a conclusion, I think that is cheap.
But if you look at it, even if you look at it, you find deeper that this is a false narrative in the sense that, let's say you appoint all the directors and all the SOEs as Jolas. When they are incompetent, you are still harming Jolas because there is more Jola than all those directors and their dependents. Maybe 10 times more Jola than all those directors and their dependents. If they are incompetent, you are still not empowering Jolas, you are destroying their wealth.
Yeah, so, as I've highlighted, these officials, these politicians, they're not really worried or care about the ethnicity. Yes, it's only a tool for them, to gain power, access, wealth, and that's it. At the end of the day, they are harming their ethnic group, and they are harming all ethnic groups in this country.
Oh, that's in the line of what Mandela says. If you empower a group to harm another group, you are opening them to a repression.
Yeah,
to counterattack.
Yeah, reprisal should happen. Yeah. So this has been a modus operandi in this country, and I think it's severely harming the development, the progress of this country. There are so many public institutions, that are not performing, that are not functioning simply because of, this tribalism. There are a lot of public officials who are not performing, who are not functioning, who are terribly corrupt. and incompetent, and only tribalism is the only reason why they are in that office. And so when you look at the greater good of this country, tribalism is killing the Gambia. And I think we have to come to that recognition, so that either we have a leader who will come to recognize that and generate a conversation, to address this issue, or empower a serious civic education program to build a whole new type of Gambian, and above all, pursue an approach that really has no regard, for tribal favors or favors based on tribalism.
See, considering the point I'm coming to move to, I seriously doubt that's going to happen, because if you look at it also, tribal politics, it prevents the leader from being responsible. He can be careless.
Yeah.
He can do anything as he pleases. For example, if I know Mandinkas are going to support me because I am Mandinka, and it's going to get me to State House, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I just have to be Mandinka.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's on both sides. Those in the government, but those also in the opposition. The way and manner they maintain power, the way our political parties are governed, and the way we maintain the leadership, I think there's a high level of tribal favoritism involved.
Yeah, so you don't have to merit it.
Yeah,
You just have to be a tribe.
So which means we also have to democratize, our political parties, to make them stand on the foundations of democracy, of good governance, so that no politician also is either appealing or perpetuating tribalism in any way just to secure power, to secure position. And I think that is also something that we need to do. I mean, because ultimately that is what we see, happen at the state level.
So where would we start it? Because, for example, if you look at it, you look at the issue of truth, tribalism. We've talked about tribalism showing up in different ways. So if you speak in the Gambia, in the current Gambia, I mean, it's strange though, I don't see that in the kind of support we get for investigative journalism. Because for us, for example, our audience is very diverse. The people who donate to us are very diverse. That's strange. Maybe you will look at it differently. But then if you look at the issue of truth, even when somebody speaks in this country now, people go to your surname first to check who you are and whether you are capable of speaking the truth to this person or not. So that even truth has to be subjected to tribal scrutiny.
And I think, once again, a lot of this is within the circles of the elite, in terms of the state, in terms of political parties, and other influential sectors, maybe in business, probably even in the media, in civil society. But, I mean, living in a community myself, and say Kembuje, and coming from a community, I can say our people are not tribalists, because I see in those village or community groups, the diversity that's there, and the way and manner relationships are made and function. You realize that in our communities, people don't care about tribe, really. So that it becomes an issue only in the formal settings, close to around the state. Political parties, civil society, media, formal sector, business, and so on areas. That's where, because maybe probably that is where there is actually a salary to receive, and
control of state resources and power.
So because that's where those things are acquired. But then when I see the Gambian communities, you realize that people really don't care about that. People are not tribalists.
So how do we solve it? How do we go about? Because it does seem to me that unless you solve this kind of thing, and there's a merit-based appointment, not only will we continue to have a dumb president, incompetent president, we'll also come to have incompetent people in everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. So I mean, we will have to cleanse our governance and politics, from tribalism. All right. And as you rightly said, to create a merit-based system, to create an accountability system, which means strict adherence to the rule of law. Now, any president, any government that generates that kind of dispensation, I think, if not 50, 100%, you will clear tribalism 50%. Yeah. Because the other element of it would be the education, the civic education, because the people may not be tribalist and are not generating it, but then they respond to it with their votes, they respond to it with participation, and so on, so that at the end of the day, it is the people that are voting into office that are perpetrating this. It is the acceptance, of those people, of their narratives and so on, that is allowing this cancer to continue to.
But it's those. You wonder if this reform could come from politics, because the politicians that it helps.
Yeah.
So, for example, Barrow himself, has to be many tribes. He is Mandinka, of course, but sometimes he wants to be Fula, sometimes he wants, sometimes he wants some very deep connection to the Jolas. You have seen Jame first, he wanted to be, Jame was Mandinka first, he's from Elias. And
yeah. Well, I think we all should be all the tribes, but that is with the objective of being positive.
Yeah, but these guys are not doing it.
That's the point. Yeah. So that from that element, I think it is good that you have a president who is all the tribes, but that is provided you are doing so because you want to bring about the tribal harmony, positivity, because there is a lot of benefits in the fact that we have multiple tribes. I tell people, just imagine we say we are going to have a luncheon sale, a dinner of all our tribes, everyone bringing their national dish, or we're going to have a show of our dress, folk tales, our music, our everything of the tribes, an ensemble of that. It will be such a melodious evening, a very aromatic evening. So, and not to mention other capacities and benefits that are existing in our individual tribes. So if you do it for that purpose, I think that is great. But then unfortunately, I think they all exploit tribe, for the purpose of seeking power. And of course, wherever it is a question of power, it is also a question of wealth. How do I accumulate wealth and maintain that power to continue to accumulate wealth? Yeah, but so the conversation has to be, to solve this problem, leadership matters. Yes, we have to have the right leadership, not just at the level of the state, but also at the level of the political parties. So I would want to see the political parties create a very democratic dispensation based on transparency and accountability on performance and delivery. Because if that is not the case, also what you're going to have is tribalism generates. Because if you look at all our parties, particularly our main parties, you can see the element of tribalism surrounding leadership issues. So that, all of these parties, the moment you talk about change of leadership, the situation is such that the context turns tribal. So it doesn't matter whether it's UDP or DOI or GDC or NRP, particularly those established parties, the moment you talk about leadership, because over time also you have one person, sitting there on top, and with all these multiple potential, individuals who can replace, So in our kind of situation, it is what it is going to, the language or the narrative would head towards that end as well, And so as it is in the opposition or the political parties, you realize it is the same narrative that you have in the state, because they still go with that into the state, So we need leadership at both levels. We need an acknowledgement of the problem, and at the thirdly, we need to identify, values and standards, in our governance, in our management, so that, to the larger extent possible, we, prevent or avoid tribe becoming a factor in, gaining power, in position, gaining position, or in even staying there, and so on. But it's a big problem. I don't know.
Do you? I mean, where do we begin the conversation? Because the politicians are beneficiaries of it, and so who starts that conversation? Because those who are beneficiaries of it are likely not to start that conversation.
Well, yeah. So it will take a lot of courage and conviction for they to start, for them to start it. So, by the look of things, that is not going to happen. So maybe this will come from out-of-state initiatives. So I'll take this to be one initiative, or the beginning of it. I think our media, which means our media in general, needs to cultivate this conversation. Even though the media itself is also, in it also are perpetrators of, of tribalism, but our civil society, as supposedly independent sector, should be able to look at what is happening in the society. So we just don't have gender issues or disability issues or corruption issues in the society. But it should interest civil society to recognize that we have sectarianism, based on tribe, based on religion, particularly, and how do we address this? So again, that is a matter of courage and conviction, because the issue of tribe naturally is sensitive, just like religion. So that everything that we say here, someone can endorse everything that we've said here. But at the same time, someone can say everything we've said here, we are tribalist, or we are promoting tribalism. And then, that conversation gets widened. In the end, it defeats the whole purpose. So that this conversation about tribe would have to require a lot of, as I said, courage, but honesty, openness, but and the willingness to say, look, we are willing to have this conversation, and it's not going to be a sweet, nice conversation. Yes, I mean, we will hear things we would consider to be accusation, allegation, baseless. But of course, it is why we have to have this conversation. So, it's interesting. Just a few weeks ago, I was having a training with National Assembly members on this subject of diversity and inclusion, and saying how sensitive it is to have a conversation on diversity and inclusion in any society. And so, if you want to have a conversation on it, and the subject is race, or the subject is tribe, or the subject is religion, be ready for some really heated exchanges. And so in the conversation, I gave analysis to show how diverse Gambia is, but how are we inclusive, And so to give examples, so that I just mentioned the National Assembly itself, there's no Christian there, there's no Aku there, there's no Manjago there, there's no Mankind there, there's no Karoninka there. But I said we can look at the latest structure the National Assembly created, which is the Select Committee on the Jami Assets. And I said, because the National Assembly, they make the laws. They're really the governors of this country. So they need to be aware of what is diversity and inclusion. And so you need to give them practical examples. So when I reflected that committee, and I displayed the pictures of the members of the committee, they are all men.
Definitely.
Yeah. So there is no person with disability, there is no woman there. And then, okay, there is a youth, of course. There is, ethnicity I showed in terms of partisan, which parties, but in terms of ethnicity, you can realize which ethnic groups are there, how it is dominated by one ethnic group, and I think there are 7. You are practically 5 Mandinka, 1 Seril, and 1 Wolof, I think.
Yeah.
And so and that generated a whole
perspective.
Yeah, but even acrimonious, because I get attacked immediately for promoting tribalism. No, but
it is not tribalism.
I said this is the point.
Because maybe that's another issue, is we are afraid to talk about it.
So we are afraid.
You can't even mention tribe in the Gambia. It's a taboo.
So that's the courage.
You can't,
because you don't want to say it. You don't want to offend, but also you don't want to be accused of it. All right, maybe you are guilty. You are, and so clearly, that committee that they created. I can guarantee, I think everyone knows, they did not create with the intention to deny any tribe to speak. And maybe because the National Assembly is such that also it is by default. Because, the National Assembly is a very small group, 54 people. How diverse can you get a group anyway? Yeah. But, it's just to show why we need to have this conversation. And the role that leaders have to play, both in the government, but also in the political parties. But to initiate it, really, I think the media and the civil society have a huge role to play there. Preferably if it comes from the leadership, the national leadership, so that after 60 years of independence, we ask ourselves, are we really a harmonious society? As a country,
have many factions, including tribe, or are we?
So I think that conversation needs to be asked, and how do we, if there is that, harmoniousness or so, but how do we improve it? Does it face threats? Where are the threats coming from? Does tribalism exist in our state? In the politics, and how does it manifest itself? How do we deal with this? And you can see, in some sense, the state itself acknowledges that, because when you look at our Elections Act, you can see it speaking to that issue of tribalism, as part of, statements that are prohibited. The IPC had an MOU, that called the Janjambore Accord, and one of the statements or political discourse that is prohibited, is tribalism or tribal politics. All right, and recently the NHRC, published hate speech, and it's very high. And when you say hate speech, usually it's on account of ethnicity and religion. And and all the others follow. So meaning it's a problem. Yeah, it's a problem, and the question now is, what should we do next? And so I just think about the media and the civil society, but I think other independent bodies like the NHRC, especially having gone this far to create and do a study on hate speech, it becomes necessary therefore for us to have a national conversation on tribe and religion, harmony in this country. When you follow the TRRC, it came out there. Yes, I was in a subject,
particularly team, but maybe that's also because it was considered sensitive, like I said. Everybody's running on it.
But people talked about it. People benefited because of tribe. I've heard, I think some people testify, how they gain scholarships and positions, stuff like that. And the perception is there, how some people think that, others got this simply because of their tribe. But you can see also people, becoming victims that for no reason really, when you look at it, this is simply because of your tribe or your religion. So all of this, all the more makes it important that we come around as a nation to look at this matter. Whether the courage is there, and the honesty, and I don't know.
All right, thank you so much for being
Yes,
with me to
thank
discuss this subject.
Yeah.
That would be all we would have on this edition. Join us again next week for another conversation. Thank you.